Hey everybody, it's your pal Drew Geraci, a longtime comic book industry veteran who has worked on pretty much every comic from the main two, but I've never got to do a horror comic, and boy, I love to do that. I'm also a three-time author on Amazon. You can check it out for the description. How's that for soft selling? Paperback or Kindle available. Kindle Unlimited gets it free. Okay, now I'm eager to jump into this. I've been reading these. I finally completed my collection of both Tower of Shadows and Chamber of Darkness with issue 3, and it's amazing shape for what I paid for it. You just never know. Sometimes you'll get a book in the mail and it looks beautiful, but it's got this massive spine roll that nobody tells you about. And spine roll means like when the papers, it's basically that, spine roll. Well, both these attempts failed, big time. And it was the first reintroduction to anthology horror comics. The Comics Code lifted around 1969 and 1970 after Stan Lee did the 3-issue anti-drug story with the Green Goblin and did not have the Comics Code Authority seal on that issue. He skipped it. He defied it. Because oddly enough, the government came to him and said, I need a sip of water. They said they wanted Stan and somebody, Marvel to do an anti-drug book. I'm sorry, I'm parched. It's better to be coughing. Anyway, these books failed, and not for lack of trying. Let me tell you this. It's like, come for the Stranko, stick around for the John Buscema, Gene Colan, Bernie Wrightson. It's just amazing. But we'll see how it goes. I'm almost tempted to do this in 2 parts because there's a lot of ground I want to cover. But I'm not going to read you the whole story of each one of them. At this point, I think anthologies were on their way out in a lot of ways. When they had the split books, in the 60s, Marvel had half an issue of Iron Man, half an issue of Captain America and Tales of Suspense, half an issue of Namor, and half an issue of Hulk sharing Tales to Astonish. Strange Tales was Nick Fury and Doctor Strange, and Marvel was constrained by the distributor that also, I think it was DC actually doing it. They had a contract and it ran out, so Marvel was free to expand its titles and give all those split books, the characters, their own titles. So it was doubling what they had, and it might have been a little too soon, and especially because in the mid-'60s, you had incredible quality at Marvel. I mean, you have Gene Colan doing Daredevil and Iron Man in Tales of Suspense. You'd have Kirby doing the other split books, and there was so much raw talent. And then when they expanded, it kind of split the vote in a lot of ways. Like Steranko, he was awesome with 10 pages, but with a 20-page or 22-page constraint, it took him a lot more time. I mean, he did some fantastic issues of Nick Fury, but he left shortly thereafter because, personally, I would have rather him keep doing 10-page stories that were, tight and it's hard to explain. But anyway, this kind of thinned the talent pool a little bit because you had people who couldn't do 2 books at a time, like George Tuska took over for Gene Colan on Iron Man, and that was fine. And then after that, there were other less satisfying fillers. But anyway, around 1970 or so, oh shush, puppy dog, our little dog, he loves affection. Daddy's got work to do, baby. So, before I proceed any further, thank you for watching this. There are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of entertainment podcasts, videos, movies, gaming, books, comic books, everything available to all of us in 2023. And the fact that you spend, 15 minutes to a half hour with me on my little channel here, it means a lot to me. I mean, I know I sound corny and stuff, like I'm at the Jerry Lewis telethon, but it really does mean a lot because, for one thing, I like sharing what I'm doing, and I like that some people will take the time to check it out and maybe make some purchases to try and inspire. And also, it's like therapy. It's like I have to unleash all the geekiness inside me. It's just boiling to the surface. Well, this one's the one everybody knows. I think Romita did the cover. He probably inked it. Or maybe, I don't know. I don't know if Jim Mooney inked it. That looks kind of Jim Mooney-ish. Okay. We start off, of course, with Steranko's story. That's been reprinted many a time. So I'm going to skip that one. That's just amazing stuff. And it's been reprinted a few times also. I love that one. Okay. Now, go to the second story by, and they do the Crypt Keeper kind of gag, you know. And Johnny Craig, writer and artist, but all I see is John Romita. And maybe it was laid out by Jim Craig and uncredited to Romita. I'm not sure. It's just very odd. I mean, that crisp, bold black line that he lays down. And just on the faces, too. It's like he does hard faces, hard lines on faces. And especially on women. There's an old not adage, but there's just an old thing of like, you don't put too many lines on a woman's face unless you intend to make her a lot older. And same thing with the superheroes. You don't make their faces a wreck unless it's part of the character. You know, like the Hulk or something. So this goes on and on and on. And then it goes back to this. It reminds me of some guy, the guy named Torres, who would do those opening and ending of stories in eerie and creepy and stuff like that. So they're following that. And I think eerie and creepy just started coming out. So I think that was another reason that prompted this. Not just look at that, inking Don Heck over John Buscema. I love it. If I hadn't said this already, I apologize if I've said this already, but the Comics Code got a lot more liberal after Stan Lee was asked by the U.S. government to do an anti-drug story, and he did, but he had to not have the Comics Code Authority on the covers because they wouldn't allow it. And it wasn't another government body; it was a self-governing comics. I don't know. It's hard to explain. You sort of had to go through them, and it was after the 50s witch hunts after comics causing juvenile delinquency. I'm getting off sidetrack, but here's, like I said, the rare Don Heck, John Buscema combination, and it works wonderful. I mean, it really does. That's very Silver Surfer, like early. And you know what? At this time, he was doing a shorthand of his in the hero books, like eventually Fantastic Four and Thor. He did this superhero 6-panel grid and got rid of the huge Baroque kind of figures that he did in Silver Surfer, which it's a shame, and it's because Stan Lee wanted more books out of him, and to go faster, you just kind of boil it down. So he studied Kirby. Okay, there's that. Put that there. And and then that's John Romita. Maybe he's thinking Maurice Severin. I'm not sure, but it's too clean to look that menacing, and it just is. Well, we start off with this guy, a beautiful Don Heck and Dan Adkins collaboration, and this is another. I mean, like I said, these are all anthologies by different people, good people, bad people, and I love the inks on this, and. Yeah, it is Dan Adkins. Okay. He can ink anybody and make it sing. Then later on, I love that. More Big John Buscema, inked by John Reporton, who was a production manager for many years in the late 60s, mid 70s when he passed. Also, he was a great inker because he knew what it took to reproduce a comic on, newsprint. and because it's a lot harder than you would imagine. And now, this issue 2 now. Neil Adams, baby. Neil MF and Adams, writer and artist. I didn't see this one coming, and it's just great stuff. There's really not a lot more to be said. I just don't want to spoil it. So you got another solid book. I mean, really, really enjoyable book. Now, Tower of Shadows. Marie Severin was doing most of the cover. Since Kirby was about to leave, she must have done, she must have done like 80% of the layouts of Marvel's covers. And then half of them she finished herself. So here's a Gene Colan, marking his appearance. I think his first appearance, yeah, in the horror books. Then you go into George Tuska as the artist, penciler and inker. The story is by Gary Friedrich. The likeness, as I've had mentioned before, is by Marie Severin. She had this gift of drawing likenesses. And so at the end, there's Groovy Gary. What was that thing anyway? 6. Okay, never mind. Sorry, I had a brain fart. Okay, Barry Smith before he became Barry Windsor Smith. And again, it's so cool to see his early stuff because each issue you could see him really muscling through his craft because he started off really, really as a dreadful Kirby clone for like 2 issues of X-Men, and he just got bolder and bolder and was teaching himself a lot more. And having an experienced inker does help. And this has a real different feel from a lot of his other work. You remember those dreams where your teeth fall out? That's what I've had a few of those. So, well, number 3. I'm not going to take forever, but I do have some points to make. Tales to blow your mind, man. Ooh. That's not they use it on the first or second cover already. News story by Alan Brodsky, who was the Iron Man writer at the time. Done by Don Heck. Really, really cool. See it, hippies. That's how you can tell it wasn't a reprint. Also, Heck's style changed a bit since those days. Boy, I love this. I love that panel. Okay, then we're going into Marv Wolfman. The first time we see Marv Wolfman's name in the credits with Gene Colan and Dan Adkins. Handy Dan Adkins. And I'm going to go over here. And Tom Sutton starting to make a name for himself. I think he first started doing Not Brand Ek, which was Marvel Comics' a version of Mad Magazine. And Tom Sutton was already very unique. I would not call his style house style or the Marvel style, but he just had a different way of, it says scripted by Danny O'Neill, but the story and art is by Tom Sutton. He just had a whole different style that really suited this kind of stuff more than superheroes. He did some Doctor Stranges that were great because that's more of his, that's where his strengths lie. Not necessarily superhero poses. Like you would never see a sticker made from a Doctor Strange drawing by Tom Sutton. And that's not a bad thing. That just hit me in the head. Okay, there we go. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's me some days. That's me some other days. Okay, another Marie Severin cover. I'm going to zip through this. And we start off with Barry Smith. Another Marie likeness. And a lot of times the writer, it's not Barry Smith saying this to us. It's what Roy is having him say. And I'm sure, they agreed on it. It's just sort of thing. Well, Wally Wood. Whew. Man, even as a kid, I knew he was exceptional. I I grew up way after EC, but it was always a treat to see if he inked something. It was always exceptional, always popped out. A lot going on there. A lot of this has that feeling of Thunder Agents, which is pretty cool. But the story essentially, it isn't about so much about horror. It's more like a fantasy story. So I think it's ill-fitting. It should have been somewhere else. Well, here comes Sid Shores here, reader. Come with me and listen to the patter of rain drumming along the coffin of your the roof of your traveling coffin. Sid Shores, written by Gary Conway. I don't know if it's Gary or Jerry Conway. I don't care. I've been calling him that for 50 years. So, some more good stuff. It's very solid. I mean, Sid Shores is not like a fan favorite, but he is super talented. He came from the golden age, if you believe that. And speaking of believing, I have to take a drink of water. So you know that I'm real. I'm not an AI image telling you these. I love that. Marie Severin again. We hit a road. Bob, we hit a snag. Start with a reprint already. A Steve Ditko reprint. Because Ditko had left like years before. So that's not a good sign. Well, and then you got Wally Wood again. Now, the treat of these series is that you get a lot of Wally Wood, but Tower of Shadows, it's not. I mean, if they had a fantasy book out at the time that was an anthology, that would be perfect. It's cool. It's not terribly thrilling. It's very much steeped in the cliches of sword and sorcery books. Gene Colan talking at you, friend. So Stan wants me to draw a story on one of my favorite subjects, tape recordings. I love that. And Dan Atkins again. Look at Dan Atkins is all over the place, and it doesn't matter who he inks. It's always top-notch work. So, I mean, look at this. We got a murderer's row of fantastic artists and up-and-comers. And, here we go. Tower of Shadows. That's not quite shadowy at all. And most of you would probably realize that this is already a reprint. Partial reprint. Meccano. Titano. Now, back to Barry Smith. Also written by Alan Brodsky, the Iron Man guy. This time inked by Vince Colletta, which is interesting. You see Barry taking on like the Neil Adams approach. That's really sweet. Really, really cool. Barry Smith, as he was known then, he did a lot of stuff because his page rate was so low. The reason, a lot of people know this, Conan fans do, the reason first 2 years of Conan was drawn by Barry Smith was because John Buscema's page rate was too high to squander, quote-unquote, on Conan, according to Stan. And then when Barry left, John jumped right back in. John jumped in, and he stayed on the title for many years. And, what you itching at, puppy? You're just being wiggly. Okay, Sword and Sorcery again. It's like, this is not, it's cute. It is cute. It's not riveting, beautiful, but if I had this book, that was my first copy of it, I'd probably never have bought it any more issues. So start off with some more fantasy, brought to you by Wally Wood. Then we jump into a reprint. So things are just kind of really going by the wayside on this title. And then, a couple of Don Heck reprints from one of the earlier Monster titles. So, that's it for Tower of Shadows. Okay, Chamber of Darkness, which came out about the same time, I think. either the same month or a month or two ahead. I think it looks very Ramita right there. And dogs are wrestling and snorting. Well, John Buscema and John Reporton, who did the story with the guys down in the mine shaft. Really cool stuff. Really, really nice. I love that. Love that. The way Buscema made flesh hang, even if you're old or if you're young, he just knew how to make he did the sunken shadows contour around the art around the face so well. Here we go, Tom Sutton. Stanley Realtor, Dennis D. O'Neill, salesman, Tom Sutton, decorator. That's great. And again, it's like it's wonderful because it's Tom Sutton, who would go on to do other horror stories in give me a second, in Charlton magazines. He's done some painted covers. He did a lot of good stories. He's one of those guys, I said, he doesn't assimilate into any particular style. He has his own style. Leave 'em laughing. Don Heck with Gary Friedrich again. And yeah, I'm a big fan of Don Heck. I mean, I know people goof on him because he's not curvy, but you know, if you expect that, then you're already behind the eight ball. If you expect anybody to be curvy, this looks Ramita to me. Maybe off of a Marie Severin sketch. I don't know, because Ramita was doing a ton of work at the time. But she also did the interior art. Inks by Herb Trimpe, a very young Herb Trimpe who just took over Hulk, and Tom Sutton. And forewarned is forearmed. That would be a great story if it was with Dr. Octopus. I wonder if they did that or not. I don't know. Super Saturday. Okay, now we go to Sid Shores. Script by Archie Goodwin, a current convert from I can't think of the damn name. From the EC books. He came from Warren Publishing. Thank you. Somebody in the audience, thank you, said that. Okay. Or maybe I just had a brain fart and it came back. So, beautiful stuff. I mean, Sid Shores really, I don't know, he's good. And there's Spile and Stained by Don Heck, scripted. So Stanley didn't even script his own character, which is kind of funny, kind of wacky, kind of kooky. So it's pretty good stuff. But the anthology format was just dying in a lot of ways. Marvel did all those books where heroes shared titles, and then after the distribution was taken care of, after they had a chance to do more books through distributing. I can't talk. Sorry. But I'm too enamored by this. This is a John Buscema thing here. I don't know who inked it, but wow. It's pretty. And here's Barry Smith again. Inked by Sid Shores. Again, it's like it's a merry-go-round of inkers. And I think they all bring a little something new to the young Barry Smith's artwork. And I'm sure he learned a lot from all the different inkers. Then you got pencil and inked by Tom Palmer. And even then, jeez. Brilliant stuff. Okay, John Buscema, John Reporton. One other important thing of note is another thing that killed these books was that I know so many comics fans that are about, I don't know, 10 years older than I am, and they stopped buying comics when it went from 12 cents to 15 cents because that was a 20% increase in comics. And back then, that was a lot of money. As insane as it sounds, it really was. And just a lot of people were put off They were like, well, it's getting too expensive, and they have too many titles out, so I'm not going to go broke. I'm going to outgrow this. Get a hand-me-down card from Dad. Go out and look for gals on the street and say, "Hey," like, "Oh, whoa." Like, what was that stupid thing they used to say? Mr. Microphone. "Hey, good look, I'll be back to pick you up later." Like, that doesn't sound too predatory. So this Kirby piece. Check out that Quasimodo face. That's great. And I'm not going to tell the rest. Tom Sutton again. He's really, really getting his feet wet. Barry Smith. Oh, that was the end of that last one. Now, I don't recall, but when I was a cross-gen, Mark Alessi had a lot of original art on the walls. I'm talking fantastic stuff like the entire story Al Williamson did for EC called 50 Girls 50. And just something you just walk around and stare at. I'm certain he had this. He had some early Barry Windsor Smith. Not counting, he also had the first page of Conan #1. So he did what I would do if I was a millionaire. Okay, well, that's you get the impression. And that is a beautiful cover. Marie Severin layouts, but I don't know who finished it. Okay, this is a little beat up here, but this has been touched up a lot because Kirby's faces were getting a lot more squarish. Everybody had chiseled jaws, and Fear Shall Follow. Wow, that is so great. The legs are purposefully drawn in this really weird, creepy-ass manner. And who ain't to know? John Verporten, Jumbo John, as they called him, because he was like 7 feet tall and 400 pounds. And he smoked the pipe, so I think that's what killed him ultimately. Roy Thomas and Johnny Craig. Remember I brought that name up earlier? With special arrangements with Arkham House publishers. That must be where Arkham Asylum got their name in the DC Batman books. Anyway, Johnny Craig is doing the art. What's different? It's Johnny Craig. It's not John Romita. I can't figure out why that one issue required John Romita to basically cover up all the work. I'm sure he was hesitant to do it, but maybe it was editorial that nudged him, and maybe they wanted some front-forward, high talent on the first 2 issues or so. And Johnny Craig was a top talent in the 50s with EC. He did that famous cover where the man was holding his wife's bloody head with an axe in his head, which those Congress subcommittees really it stood out to them, and they presented it. And it is creepy, but that was horror comics back then. Here we got Paul Raymond as artist. He was another guy who was he inked some early Marvel books in the Marvel Universe, and then he went over to MLJ Publishing and published Archie as well. And he's trying to help bring back these 40 characters, the 1940s characters like the Shield and the Black Hood and Flyman and Flygirl and all that for the Mighty Crusaders. It bombed badly. Because they were really trying to be Marvel in the worst possible way. And it was the worst possible way. Well, this front page here, I really think Herb Trimpe touched that up. That's just got his feel. And Paul Raymond's more of a very harder graphic, less line work. Or let's see. Hey, I'm surprised this book isn't like a high-ranking, expensive book. It's like first man-thing prototype. Remember he started doing prototype comics. If you don't know what it means, look it up. Okay, there's Watch me die twice. First, I died on the stage as a stand-up comedian, and then I got thrown out literally by the bosses. The boss of bosses. Blast your brain. Trying to get that little hippie lingo in there. I love this. I love it, I love it, I love it. Sal Buscema. Peace, people. I'm Sal Buscema, behind the drawing board as well as the 8-ball. That is so magnificent. That is so cool. Sid Shore is the inker, and Len Wein is the writer. Very young Len Wein. Him and Marv Wolfman really got their start at DC, but they jumped around a bit, mostly because they were unknown for a lot of cases. So it wasn't like DC and Marvel were looking to see if, oh, you're working for that company, you can't work for mine. Because there are some cases where people like Mike Esposito had to use pseudonyms. He used 2 pseudonyms. See, now we're going into a reprint. And then a new story written by Mimi Gold. She was a secretary, I think, after Flo Steinberg left. There's this really cute caricature of her done by Alan Kupperberg, who had this big crush on her in his Streetwise 3-part storyline. Streetwise is about a bunch of comic pros, what they've gone through in their life, some fun stories, autobiographical stuff. And then Dick Ayers. I hate to be hard, but Dick's stuff kind of, I don't know. I'm not gonna. He's stuff with Sergeant Fury with John Severin. That was great. He was one of those guys who needed a collaborator. And check that out, Bernie Wrightson on the cover, and that very much looks like a Marie Severin layout. And there we go. We got some. I don't know if Bernie Wrightson started at Marvel or at DC. I don't know. So, but when I found this, I was like, oh my gosh! And look how advanced Bernie's stuff looks. He was very new to comics, but the storytelling is there. He has his own style, just real heavy shadows. I mean, it's a stunner. You know, he probably got paid less than just about everybody else, kind of like him and Barry Smith. I mean, already you got that going on with a lot of his work. And then we have another reprint. Ditko reprint. Then a 2-page story by Tom Sutton again. He's just great. Let's see. Denny O'Neil did the scripts. No. Adopted from... Oh, never mind. There's a quote. But Tom Sutton did it. Just so exciting. Now we go into... that looks like one of my dogs. When she's ready to go to the groomer. Can't talk to that fur. Yeah, we go. We got some more Righteous Wrightson. This is the last issue of Chamber of Darkness. Some of these books continued with a different title, a different name, like Where Monsters Roam and all that. Okay, here we go. Right into a reprint. And, so they were kind of petering out. Come on. A little bit of spine roll. Ain't gonna hold me back. Nobody will put me down. Oh, this is Dan Adkins' solo pencils and inks. Really sharp stuff. The only other stuff I've known him to do pencils and inks on was Doctor Strange for a brief period between before Roy Thomas and Gene Colan took over Doctor Strange the last few months. Well, reprints. So you're getting a lot less for your money. You know, you don't even get a Wrightson story. You know. Okay, here's the thing. If you're going to do horror, you have to commit to the bit. And Marvel failed because not only the price tag, but their books, with few exceptions like this, They had that superhero sheen, had the dialogue blurbs and the tales that blow your mind stuff, and it kind of took away from. See, hear that? I have a little dragon chained into my basement. So actually, she's a 10-pound slash poodle slash Shih Tzu. Hey, you guys! Shh! No bark! No bark! Okay. Exciting little gal, little boy. Well, now they tried. This didn't last very long. They were spending too much money on the talent. Especially the big names. As you can see in the later issues, you get reprints instead of getting Buscema and all these others. So really, at Marvel Comics that dealt with horror were not very. They were too Marvel-y. They were too on brand. But the exception was Tomb of Dracula, and since Gene Colan did it from the first issue and was also inked by Tom Palmer, and they did 70 friggin' issues every month. That's a milestone. So I sort of don't count that. It was his own thing. It wasn't an anthology. It was just a single character that was very compelling. But also another exception you get in the comics would be stuff by mega talents or up and coming mega talents like Val Mayerick. I hope I'm not damaging his name too much, but he would do The Living Mummy. He would do the Frankenstein monster, and like I said, that was spotty as well because those didn't sell as well. The Marvel kept cranking out superhero stories, and it kind of, it just kind of was a little too appealing in that way. And how can I put it that way? Well, both their horror titles and their superheroes had that same sheen, that same smooth, superheroic sheen. But I just had a mental hiccup. Well, here's the thing. When they went to magazines, when Marvel started doing magazines around this time, that's when they managed to continue with this stuff and do edgier stuff. And Gene Colan did some work. A lot of great artists did work in these Marvel magazines. And a lot of them were like left over from Warren Publications. And Warren was still going strong, but Marvel had a second wind with the Marvel mags. So much great stuff. And it wasn't stuck with the comics code. They even had nudity in some issues. This is perfect background noise. Well, here's the thing. In the comics, they did commit to the bit. This is what a horror title was in the early 70s and the mid 70s. I mean, it's so moody, it's so different. You would not have. I think it's Nick Hardy. This is not a superhero cover. It's a horror comic. And let me tell you something. I didn't buy it back then because I was little, and DC's horror titles scared the shit out of me. See, and there's not even any blurbs. It's just these eerie images. Boy, I love that simple color area there. There was just a lot of. I'd be over like a cousin's house, a lot older than I am, and I wanted to read a comic. I didn't bring any comics. He'd have House of Secrets and such, and I would read them, but I felt really unnerved, and because I'm not even 10 at the time, but the DC just really early went all out, and their stuff was superior as a result. Their color stuff, for some reason, they never really got into the magazine business like Marvel did. I mean, that's what saved Marvel horror comics throughout the 70s was the magazines. But great stuff. And something you can get really super cheap that I think is really great is in the early mid-90s or whatever, DC reprinted a huge anthology reprinting Timeless Tales by the Top Talents of Terror under the Vertigo brand. Let's say July 98. I was lucky to get this with my DC comps because I was a regular at the time. little introduction by Sergio Aragonés, just for get some fun going. And there we got some mature Bernie Wrightson, a little of everything. There's Neil Adams. There's lots of great stuff. So, essentially, what killed Marvel was they just didn't commit to the bit. Like, these kind of characters, the way they're drawn, look like they could be fighting Iron Man or Spider-Man or something. They were just too... Again, this is so... It's so super pizzazzy, and it doesn't give you that haunting silence that the DC books would give you. That's a close one. That I like, and they shouldn't have done that. Well, I do recommend them nonetheless. Like I said, however, the last few issues, they totally go more reprints than not, and that's about it. I can't really think of much else. But yeah, it failed horribly because they didn't commit to the bit, and they just kept doing superheroes, and it kind of cannibalized the sales of anything that wasn't superheroes. Yeah, but later in the mid-'70s, I mean, Marvel did take chances, but it was in their magazines. It wasn't so much in the comics, except for even Man-Thing and some of the others. Man-Thing was good for a while to me, but he was hard to relate to because he didn't say anything. He'd show up. He'd be like basically a Deus Machina, where a bad guy was doing something really evil to some innocent people, and then he turned around, saw this big swamp monster, and whoever knows fear burns at the Man-Thing's touch. And a lot of people love it, and that's cool. It's not my bag, man. Wow, yeah, I want tales that'll blast your brain. Ooh wee, I'm hip. I'm saying this in 2023. Well, I hope you like this, and I hope I made some sense. Now, please tell me in the comments below, where you think I'm right, where you think I'm wrong. Please hit like and subscribe, and tell me other gems like this. There are a few other books that came out, but these were the prominent ones. Weird Wonder Tales was all reprint, I think. I'll have to look. I haven't looked those up. I came up with these because they were the first two anthology horror stories that Marvel did in many years, when they were allowed to do creepier stuff than like Zutak from Outer Space, or the Tax Collector from Outer Space. That's a funny one. It's real. I'm not putting you on. Okay, and thanks again for spending time with me. My subscriber base is building gradually, and I'm loving it. I don't have thousands or anything yet, but hopefully I could win you over. You can tell all your friends and tell them that they won't be cool unless they subscribe to my channel. So that's about it. Let me know if I've left anything out, what you liked about this episode, what you hated about it, or share stories about the artists and where they were at this time in their career. Okay, now I'm babbling because I don't want this episode to end ever. Okay, well, that's it. And thanks again for visiting, and I'll see you soon, okay? Take care, everyone. Bye.